I read a report earlier today that said that the Panthers had a Hunger Game-like culture under Frank Reich. There was a lot of finger pointing. Nobody wanted to get thrown to the dogs. Nobody wanted to get thrown under the bus. And this staff pretty much quit on Frank Reich once they saw the writing on the wall and that he was most likely going to end up getting fired before the season started. And this just goes to show you just how big of a clown show this is in Charlotte, North Carolina right now. If you're a Panthers fan, how many times have you taken trips to see the circus play? Because the clowns are out of the bag at this point. And it's really unfortunate that Bryce Young has been put in such a awful situation. I mean, when you got a coaching staff that quits on the coach, and there were some rumors around that said that there was a little bit of animosity towards Frank Reich when he took back the play calling duties. Nobody was really in agreement with it. And this is just a really ugly situation that transpired in Carolina. You know, David Tepper, he's not exempt from any of the blame. This is somebody that doesn't know how to keep his hands from out of the damn cookie jar. If you're going to hire somebody, you got to allow them to do their job. But when you got guys on the coaching staff who are texting the owner behind Frank Reich's back, it's no surprise that the Panthers have been the worst team in the NFL this season. Your coaching staff has turned on each other. Everybody's trying to save their own back. Nobody's trying to come together and unite as a team. This is an organization that lacks leadership, and it starts from up top. Why would the coaches feel comfortable enough to text David Tepper behind Frank Reich's back unless David Tepper didn't have a little bit of saying to some of these coaches in some closed-door conversations? You know, like David Tepper is a meddler, and he probably was messing around. And like I said earlier, you know, this is somebody who is super involved, doesn't know how to keep his hands from out of the cookie jar. He doesn't know how to let his employees be employees. He always has to have a say-so, and he's a control freak at this point. And for a couple of these coaches to be texting him behind Frank Reich's back, I'm pretty confident that there had to be some sneaky conversations going on about Frank Reich's employment. And if these coaches quit on Frank Reich because they knew he was going to get him fired eventually, did you not think that maybe David Tepper could have tipped them off and probably said, you know, like, it's okay, he's not going to be here for too long? Like, this was just a really bad situation. And this is worse than the Urban Meyer fiasco. Urban Meyer won more than one game when he was coaching his first season and his long season in Jacksonville. There's just no leadership. And David Tepper, he's a big problem with this organization. And if you're a Panthers fan, I wouldn't be mad at you for telling him to sell the damn team. He doesn't know how to hire coaches. They can't get it right at quarterback. You got rid of Cam Newton and you haven't gotten it right since. And you gave up so much to get Bryce Young, and Frank Reich just didn't have a vision for him. Had an awful scheme. You look at their general manager, I believe his name is Scott Fitterer, did an awful job of giving Bryce Young the talent around him. It would have made more sense just to trade Brian Burns instead of giving away DJ Moore. Hell yeah, it would have hurt to get rid of Brian Burns. He's not an elite pass rusher, though. He's not a TJ Watt, a Myles Garrett, or a Nick Bosa. He's a B-plus pass rusher. If you're going to invest a number one overall pick and trade up so many assets to get Bryce Young, you might as well invest on that side of the football as well and just say, bump the defense. We need to make sure that our franchise QB succeeds, because having a star quarterback has a way bigger impact on wins and losses than what Brian Burns is going to have. They should have kept DJ Moore, but there's just so much dysfunction that David Tepper said, you know, we got to go ahead and we need to get us a quarterback. And maybe everybody did truly want Bryce Young. But even if that really is the case, they still made an awful decision to get rid of DJ Moore. Frank Reich didn't have a vision, the GM didn't have a vision, and the owner didn't have a vision either. Because you look at Houston had a plan. Just look at all of the draft picks that they hit on. This is one of the best draft classes that the Houston Texans have probably ever have. CJ Stroud is a superstar. Will Anderson is going to be a superstar. Tank Dell has been a stud. Dating back to last year, you got John Mechie, who looks really good. They got another receiver, Nico Collins, who they drafted, who looks really good. They've landed on a lot of their draft picks. Jalen Petrie. Who has Carolina drafted that has been a Pro Bowl caliber player? Derek Brown, maybe? Jeremy Chin? That's about it. Brian Burns? Okay. But they don't have a lot of success in the draft. They don't know how to build a team through the draft, and they're not good in free agency acquisition either. Miles Sanders is probably one of the worst free agency signings of last offseason. And I don't know where to rank him, but he definitely is somewhere in the top 5 of worst signings. This dude is awful. He's not even the best running back on this damn team. There's no surprise that the Carolina Panthers only won 1 game this season. When you got a culture like this, when everybody's trying to look out for themselves, people's going behind the coach's back, who hired them, who brought them to Carolina to text the owner, being sneaky, everybody's out to get one another, just trying to protect themselves. There's no leadership. There's no teamwork. To succeed as an organization, it has to be one team, one goal. Everybody has to be locked in, has to put their egos aside for the betterment of the team's success. And with this cutthroat mentality that these coaches had on this coaching staff, I know this is a rumor, but there has to be some legitimacy to these reports. Y'all don't think so? David Tepper doesn't know how to be a great leader himself. So it's no surprise that there wasn't no leadership on this staff. And Bryce Young is struggling because of this. You know, like, Hunger Game mentality down there in Charlotte, North Carolina. You know, the circus has been in town for the last 3 months ever since the season started. Hell, even dating back to the preseason, this shit was looking like it was going to be ugly. I remember when Kayvon Thibodeau delivered a clothesline to hell to Bryce Young in their preseason game. This thing was messy from the start. It was looking like this thing wasn't going to work out before the regular season even started. The coaching staff just never had a proper vision and a proper plan in place for building a winning organization. You know, I feel really bad for Bryce Young in this situation. He didn't ask to be here. Who's going to turn down getting drafted #1 overall? If I was Bryce Young, I would have told them, you know, I'm good off y'all. I'd rather go to another organization. I'd rather go to Houston. Shoot, you might have got mad at me and said that I had some character issues, but it's all about where you land. Bryce Young is a really good prospect, or at least he was when he was coming out of Alabama. If you go back and you look at Nick Saban's quotes about Bryce Young, he said that one thing that we have to change is that we were too Bryce Young dependent. Why do you think that he got rid of his whole entire coaching staff? He cleaned house and brought in a whole new coaching staff for this season. And it wasn't just those normally talented Alabama teams that you always see. Those were probably the most least talented teams that Nick Saban has ever had. And they were carried by Bryce Young. Regardless of how smart the dude is, this dude is really accurate, has great anticipation, and he doesn't have any chance of succeeding because he has an offensive line that allows him to get sacked as soon as he gets the football, and his best receiver is 30-something-year-old Adam Thielen, old man Adam Thielen. There was no chance that Bryce Young was going to succeed, especially when you look at how poor this coaching staff was. I mean, just look, they had a Hunger Game-like culture under Frank Reich. Everybody was trying to stab each other in the back. No leadership. And Bryce Young has suffered because of it.